I was sitting at the oak table I built in 1985 when Chelsea told the board I was too senile to run my own company. 7 board members stared at the packets she'd distributed. Medical opinions, cognitive assessments, a psychologist's letter, something about cognitive decline and dementia. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Coffee I'd made at 6 that morning had gone cold in the pot. "Whoa, Grandpa, I love you." Her voice caught. "But you're not fit to run this company anymore." Her voice trembled. The catch was perfect, rehearsed. I'd heard that same tone when she talked the board into the equipment lease. She clicked to the first slide. A photo of my desk, documentation binders stacked 6 deep. "Obsessive record-keeping," she said. "Inability to delegate or trust digital systems." "Derek's firm has offered $4.2 million for complete acquisition," Chelsea continued. "Our independent assessor confirmed that's generous given our declining performance and aging infrastructure." She explained the purchase agreement, the 90-day competency clause. If I was declared unfit, her power of attorney would complete the sale. Michael Brenner shifted in his chair. His sport coat bunched at the shoulders. He wouldn't look at me. 3 younger board members nodded. The room felt rehearsed. I didn't move, didn't blink. My hands rested on the oak table I'd constructed from boards I'd selected myself. Then I reached into the briefcase I'd brought from the locked cabinet in my office and pulled out journal number 17. 16 years of handling had worn the leather binding smooth, but the gold leaf number gleamed under the fluorescent lights. The journal's weight settled on the oak surface. Gold leaf number 17 caught the overhead lights. "Open to page 47, I said. November 14th, 2008. Chelsea's hand froze halfway to her water glass. The color left her face in stages, like someone had opened a drain. Read it. November 14th, 2008. The offshore account you told me to open. I make videos, you hit subscribe, perfect match. To understand why that journal matters, you need to know how I got here. How a Polish immigrant built something worth stealing. I arrived in America with $200 and broken English. 15 years old, stepping off a ship at the port of New York in 1967, carrying everything I owned in a canvas duffel bag my father had sewn himself. The processing center smelled of industrial cleaner and fear. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Dozens of languages echoed off concrete walls. Polish, Italian, Yiddish, Spanish. My father gripped my shoulder at the Gdańsk dock. His machinist's hands, scarred from 40 years of lathe work, squeezed once. "Albrecht, let your work speak louder than your words." I carried those words through Ellis Island processing, through the ferry ride to Manhattan, through my first night in a Newark boarding house where 6 of us shared one room. I found work as a machinist's apprentice in a Newark factory. 50 cents an hour, learning to operate manual lathes while my supervisor corrected my English. At night, I attended classes for my GED at a high school that smelled of chalk dust and floor wax. I was the oldest student in my class by 3 years. The other machinists taught me precision, how to measure tolerances within thousandths of an inch, how to read blueprints, how to maintain equipment so it performed the same way every shift. I learned that consistency mattered more than speed, that quality built reputation. By 1973, I had 6 years of experience and $3,000 saved. 2 fellow machinists, both older men who respected careful work, agreed to partner with me. We rented a 3,000-square-foot space in a light industrial park. The concrete floors showed stains from previous tenants. High windows let in natural light. The space smelled of cutting fluid and metal shavings from whoever had worked there before. We bought 3 manual lathes at an equipment auction for $2,400 and painted our company name on the front door, Grayson Precision Manufacturing. The first 6 months, I worked 50-hour weeks producing aerospace components. Small contracts, nothing glamorous. Parts that required tight tolerances but paid modest rates. I handled quality control personally, inspecting every piece before it shipped. When we delivered on time with 0 defects, contractors noticed. By 1975, we had our first repeat customer. By 1977, we employed 8 workers. By 1980, 15. In 1985, I purchased the building we'd been renting and the adjacent property. 15,000 square feet of owned space. I built the oak boardroom table myself in the corner of the workshop, selecting boards for grain pattern and stability. 20 employees worked 3 shifts. We specialized in high-tolerance precision parts for aerospace applications. The work required skill. The margins were thin, but we were profitable every quarter. I met Helen in 1986 at a church social. We married the following year. My son Thomas, from a brief relationship during my early years in Newark, was born in 1975. Helen died of an aneurysm in 1995, sudden and without warning. 3 years after my father's heart attack. I was 43 years old. Thomas married Marie in 1988. They had a daughter. Chelsea was born in 1989, healthy, 8 pounds and 4 ounces, with her mother's delicate features and my hazel eyes. In 1997, a highway collision killed both Thomas and Marie. The police said the other driver crossed the median at 70 miles per hour. Instant impact. Chelsea was 8 years old. I was 45, widowed, running a manufacturing company. I had a choice: let Chelsea enter the foster system or raise her myself. I rearranged the spare bedroom in my ranch house, painted the walls pale blue because she said that was her favorite color. I sat in chairs designed for 2 parents at 23 parent-teacher conferences. The elementary school guidance counselor always left an empty seat beside me. I taught her to ride a bicycle in the factory parking lot on a Sunday afternoon. The asphalt showed wear from decades of employee vehicles. My English still carried polish and flexion when I shouted encouragement. Pedal more fast, Chelsea." I held the seat steady while she found her balance, then ran alongside until she could pedal on her own. I walked the factory floor at 6 a.m. every morning, but I made sure Chelsea had ballet lessons, summer camps, college prep tutoring, the childhood my immigrant experience never afforded. She was smart. Graduated high school with honors. I paid for her undergraduate degree at Northwestern, then another $180,000 for her MBA at Kellogg's School of Management. I attended her graduation ceremony in my only suit, watching her walk across the stage, top of her class. I felt pride that day, seeing her achieve what my father never could have imagined. Quartz, there was something else. Something I noticed but hoped meant nothing. In 1992, before Chelsea came to live with me, I learned an expensive lesson about verbal agreements. The contractor's lawyer smirked across the conference table. "You have no proof of those terms, Mr. Grayson. No written agreement. Just your memory against my client's signed affidavit." I lost $40,000 that afternoon. That night, I drove to an office supply store and purchased a leather-bound notebook. At home, I stamped the number 1 in gold leaf on the spine. I began documenting everything. Every business decision, every conversation, every financial transaction, the date, the weather, my reasoning for each choice. I wrote in fountain pen, Pelican M800, black ink, medium nib. Each entry started with date, weather, time. Facts first, interpretation second. The ink dried permanent. No erasures, no alterations. Just facts recorded as they happened. Journal number 17 covered 2008. Chelsea was 19 years old, home for Thanksgiving break during her sophomore year of college. We sat in my kitchen while I reviewed quarterly statements. "Grandpa, you should open a Cayman Islands account," she said. "Tax efficiency." I looked up from the spreadsheet. Why would I do that? Offshore asset protection. Everyone with money does it. Reduces your exposure. I wrote the conversation in my journal that night. November 14th, 2008, page 47. I documented her suggestion. I documented my refusal. I wrote about my father's lesson, about letting honest work speak. I thought it was just business school talk. Theory she'd learned somewhere but didn't fully understand. I hoped she'd grow out of it. By 2024, I had 31 journals, each one numbered in gold leaf, each one stored in the floor-to-ceiling safe in my home office. The room smelled of leather and old paper. 17 restored vintage typewriters lined the shelves I'd built from factory floor planks. Each machine worked. I tested them monthly. Oil, clean, type 1 page. The journals filled the floor safe, 31 leather spines showing gold leaf numbers. Sundays, I restored vintage typewriters in the factory workshop. Chelsea called it wasting time on junk. But a 1952 Royal Quiet Deluxe still typed perfect characters if you maintained it properly. Chelsea used to mock the journals, called them paranoid old-world thinking, said digital systems made handwritten records obsolete. But I kept writing every day, every transaction, every conversation that mattered. The journals showed patterns I wanted to ignore. Chelsea's MBA recommendations that shifted from respectful suggestions to demanding modernization. Her introduction of Derek Sutton as her fiancé. Her questions about my retirement plans. Her concern about my memory. Journal number 31 documented the current crisis. Her manipulation of financial reports. Her secret meetings with Derek's acquisition firm. The falsified medical evaluation she'd arranged. The competency motion she was preparing. I read my father's words every morning while drinking coffee in my kitchen. Let your work speak louder than your words. My work was documented. 31 years of proof. Every decision explained. Every transaction recorded. The journals weren't paranoia. They were my voice when words would be dismissed. The vintage typewriters on my shelves required no electricity, no software updates, just maintenance and skill. I'd taught Chelsea about documentation. I'd shown her the mechanics. I'd demonstrated the system, but I'd failed to teach her why it mattered. I taught her to oil the typewriter carriages, showed her how permanent ink couldn't be altered, but I never explained why that mattered. Why my father's machinist precision applied to words, not just metal. I'd shown her the technique without explaining the integrity behind it. She'd learned to document everything while missing the purpose, truth preservation, not truth manipulation. That was my failure. Not the journals themselves. Not the careful records. But raising someone who saw documentation as a tool for control rather than a foundation for trust. My work was documented, and Chelsea was finally listening. Chelsea walked through the factory floor at 9:30 on a Monday morning in June 2017. Her heels clicked against concrete that showed 40 years of oil stains and metal shavings. She wore a charcoal suit tailored, her MBA diploma from Kellogg still fresh in its frame back at her new apartment. I watched from my workbench near the oldest manual lathe. 20 employees operated machines around us. The air smelled of cutting fluid and heated metal. "Morning, Grandpa," she said. James Kowalski glanced up from the milling station. He nodded at her, cautious but respectful. Mr. Grayson's granddaughter, home from business school. The factory workers wanted family succession to work. Chelsea had finished her MBA in May 2017. I'd sat in the auditorium in my only suit 3 weeks earlier, watching her cross the stage. My granddaughter, applying business school expertise to the company I'd built through intuition and sweat. Wednesday morning, Chelsea sent her first efficiency recommendations. Digital inventory systems, automated invoicing, performance metrics dashboards. The proposals were detailed, professional. She'd included cost-benefit analyses and implementation timelines. I read them twice, then I walked to her office, the one I'd cleared for her on the second floor. "The software investment is $90,000, I said. She looked up from her computer. Dual monitors, something she'd requested her first week. The ROI analysis shows payback in 18 months. Reduced labor hours and inventory management alone justify the cost. James tracks inventory manually. Wells has for 30 years. No errors. Manual tracking doesn't scale, Grandpa. What happens when James retires? We need systems that aren't dependent on individual workers." I set the proposal on her desk. "We'll continue with James's method." Her smile tightened. Professional, patient, okay. Just wanted to present the option. 3 days later, another email arrived. Subject line, following up on modernization discussion. The tone had shifted. "Not much, just enough. Grandpa, I strongly recommend we revisit the inventory system upgrade. Our current process creates operational risk and limits growth capacity. Happy to schedule a call to discuss your concerns." I opened journal number 23 and documented the exchange. Date, weather, her exact phrasing. The shift from collaborative question to professional insistence. 2 months later, she copied the board on an efficiency proposal. Michael Brenner responded within hours, suggesting we schedule a presentation. Chelsea's reply thanked him for his forward-thinking leadership. The next email to me said, "We need to discuss your resistance to modernization. The board expects CFO recommendations to receive serious consideration." I saved every message, printed them, filed them chronologically. I still filed paper copies of every invoice in my office safe, a habit Chelsea called wasteful. At night, I compared her digital reports to my handwritten contract records. Small discrepancies emerged. Nothing major, rounding differences. Date inconsistencies between her quarterly summaries and the original agreements I'd negotiated. When I mentioned them, she laughed. "You're confusing the old vendor contracts with our current terms. We renegotiated those rates in 2016, remember?" I didn't remember renegotiating. I checked journal number 22. No entries about new terms. "Show me the updated agreements," I said. "They're in the digital filing system. I'll send you the links." The links never came. In March 2019, Chelsea returned from a corporate networking event in Chicago. She mentioned meeting interesting people, strategic thinkers who understood modern business dynamics. 2 months later, a man visited the factory. Tall, mid-30s, wearing shoes that cost more than most workers' weekly salary. Italian leather, polished to a mirror finish. He introduced himself as Derek Sutton, acquisitions specialist. "Chelsea's told me about the operation," he said. Impressive facility. He walked the floor with her, asking questions about equipment age and production capacity. His eyes moved like an appraiser's, cataloging square footage and machinery value. His shoes never touched the shop floor directly. He stayed on the painted walkways. After he left, I asked Chelsea about him. "Derek? Just a friend from the networking circuit. He's interested in manufacturing sector trends." 3 months later, Derek visited again, and quarterly after that. Each time, Chelsea gave him factory tours. Each time, his questions became more specific. Maintenance costs, contract renewal rates, property valuation. By late 2020, Chelsea mentioned him in different contexts. Dinner plans, weekend trips to Milwaukee, professional development conferences they'd attended together. In March 2021, I reviewed quarterly financial statements she'd prepared for the board. The numbers showed declining margins, increased maintenance expenses, aging infrastructure costs. I cross-referenced her report against actual invoices in my files. The maintenance line items didn't match. She'd listed $42,000 for equipment repairs. The actual invoices totaled $18,000. I called her office. "The maintenance numbers are wrong," I said. "Which numbers?" "Quarter 1. Q show 42,000. Receipts total 18. Silence on the line. Then her voice, measured and calm. "Grandpa, those figures include projected Q2 expenses." She turned back to her computer. "We're forecasting increased maintenance needs for aging equipment. It's standard accounting practice to smooth costs across quarters. Show me the projections. I'll add them to the next board packet." They weren't in the next packet. I began checking every report she filed. The discrepancies grew. Vendor payments to companies I didn't recognize. Consulting fees for services I hadn't authorized. Small amounts spread across categories. Over the next year, I found similar discrepancies totaling $300,000. By 2022, the number had grown to $847,000. In my journal, I documented each one, page after page of transactions that didn't align. By early 2022, Chelsea's emails had evolved further. "Grandpa, we really need to address your resistance to necessary operational updates. The board is concerned about decision-making processes that prioritize tradition over business fundamentals. Perhaps we should schedule a formal review of management approaches." In staff meetings, she began contradicting me in front of employees. When I insisted on manual quality inspections for a critical aerospace contract, she sighed. "Perfectionist delays like this are exactly why our delivery times lag industry standards," she said. James Kowalski's jaw tightened. He said nothing. When I spent an afternoon with our oldest client, reviewing specifications for a contract renewal, Chelsea mentioned it to Michael Brenner. "Time-wasting sentimentality," she called it. "We need professional account management, not personal relationships." Michael asked me about it during a board call. "Everything okay with the client services approach, Albert?" "Fine. Why?" Chelsea mentioned some concerns about efficiency. "Nothing serious. Just wanted to check." I added the exchange to my journal. Dated it. Noted Michael's exact words. In July 2022, Chelsea sent an email asking about a budget item from 1997, an equipment purchase I'd made 25 years earlier. I remembered it clearly, provided the original invoice from my files. 2 weeks later, Michael mentioned that Chelsea seemed worried about my memory. She said, "You got confused about some old equipment records. Couldn't remember the purchase details." I gave her the exact invoice. "I'm sure it's nothing. Just family concern, probably." The words started appearing in conversations I wasn't part of. Senile. Workers mentioned it to James, who mentioned it to me. Always the same source. Chelsea, voice trembling slightly, eyes worried, touching board members' arms. In December 2023, Chelsea sent a company-wide email about the holiday party. "Celebrate another successful year. Recognize our growth trajectory. Meet the team's newest strategic advisor." The party filled the company cafeteria. String lights, catered food. Chelsea circulated in a red dress, touching board members' arms, laughing too loud at their stories. Derek stood beside her, proprietary hand on her lower back. "Everyone, I want you to meet my fiancée," she announced. Applause. "Congratulations." Michael Brenner shook Derek's hand. Derek's eyes swept the room, calculating. Chelsea glanced at me once, her hazel eyes showing something I recognized but had hoped to never see in family. They moved through the crowd together. Derek asking questions about equipment age. Chelsea explaining her modernization vision. Board members nodding. James stood next to me. Something wrong with this picture, he said. Yes, I said. That night, I opened a new leather journal, stamped it with gold leaf number 31. On the first page, I wrote the date, December 15th, 2023. Clear weather, temperature 38 degrees. Then one line, she is planning something. I will document everything. The next 6 months, I wrote daily. Every discrepancy, every contradiction, every whispered concern about my memory that reached me through loyal workers. Chelsea's emails grew more condescending. Derek's visits more frequent. The quarterly reports showed worse performance while actual production remained steady. I compared her digital statements to my paper records. Found the shell corporations. Traced the vendor payments to companies that didn't exist. Calculated $847,000 moved through accounts I'd never authorized. The Cayman Islands account she'd suggested in 1998 opened in 2019, funded with my company's money, hidden in maintenance costs and consulting fees and efficiency upgrades that never happened. In March 2024, the board meeting notice arrived. Special session, financial review, or management assessment. I knew what was coming. 6 months earlier, she'd started planning my removal. But I'd been documenting for 31 years. She was ready. So was I. The factory floor at 5:45 on Tuesday, March 12, 2024, is silent. Just the machines and me. Can see equipment in standby mode, the smell of cutting fluid and metal shavings hanging in the air. Overhead lights casting shadows across concrete that shows 40 years of wear. I checked the whiteboard near the oldest manual lathe. Production schedules written in my handwriting, same neat columns I'd used since 1973. Third shift had completed the aerospace bracket order, 47 units within .002 tolerance. Second shift would start the precision fasteners at 6:30. Everything normal, everything routine. The boardroom filled by 8:50. Michael Brenner arrived first, sport coat bunched at the shoulders, carrying his coffee mug. 2 younger board members came next, laptops already open. The older members took their usual seats. 7 people total, same as every quarterly meeting for the past 15 years. Chelsea walked in at 8:58 wearing a charcoal suit, hair in her low bun. She carried a stack of packets, not the standard financial reports I'd prepared for review. She walked the table, placing one packet in front of each board member. "Before we begin the regular agenda," she said, "there's an urgent matter we need to address." I sat at the head of the oak table I'd built in 1985. My hands rested on wood I'd selected for grain pattern and stability. The same fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The same framed aerospace contracts hung on the walls. Michael opened his packet. His eyebrows pulled together. "What is this?" "A competency assessment memorandum," Chelsea said. Michael's eyebrows pulled together. Someone cleared their throat. Coffee cups stayed untouched. She distributed the remaining packets. Each board member opened theirs. Pages rustled. Someone cleared their throat. "There's a psychologist's letter," Chelsea continued. "Dr. Raymond Cooler evaluated Grandpa last month. His letter says, cognitive decline, early dementia." I looked at her. She met my eyes for 2 seconds, then focused on the board members. "I never consented to a psychological evaluation," I said. "That's not my signature. The middle initial is wrong." Chelsea clicked to her first presentation slide. A photograph of my desk, documentation binders stacked 6 deep. Obsessive record-keeping, she told the board. Inability to delegate or trust digital systems. Dr. Kohler identifies this as a classic indicator of cognitive rigidity and paranoid thinking in elderly patients. One of the younger board members nodded. Gao started typing notes. Chelsea advanced to the next slide. Screenshots of my emails questioning the Westfield maintenance contract, the one I'd later discovered was falsified. Confusion about basic business agreements, she said. Grandpa frequently contradicts current vendor terms, insisting we have different arrangements than what our records show. Last month, he spent 40 minutes arguing about a maintenance contract he claims we never signed, despite having his signature on file. I'd spent 40 minutes reviewing a falsified maintenance agreement she'd backdated. But arguing now would prove her point about confusion and defensiveness. Michael flipped pages. Found the consent form. Studied my signature for 3 seconds. His jaw tightened. Grandpa, I love you. Chelsea's voice broke. The same catch she'd used when convincing the board to approve the equipment lease. But you're not fit to run this company anymore. She clicked to financial charts. Red arrows pointing downward. Declining margins. Increased costs. Aging infrastructure. Our performance has deteriorated over the past 4 years, she said. Not because of market conditions. Because of management decisions that prioritize outdated methods over business fundamentals. The 2 younger members exchanged glances. Nodded again. Derek's firm has offered $4.2 million for complete acquisition, Chelsea announced. I noted Derek wasn't here. Smart. Let her take the risk while he stayed clean. His absence would make it harder to prove conspiracy. Our independent assessor confirmed that's generous given our declining performance and aging infrastructure. She pulled up the purchase agreement. 47 pages of legal language. The offer includes a 90-day competency clause, she explained. If Grandpa is declared medically unfit, my power of attorney allows me to complete the sale on his behalf. This protects him from making impaired decisions while ensuring our employees and stakeholders aren't harmed by continued decline. Michael leaned back. His jaw worked like he wanted to speak, but couldn't find words. The younger members sat within 6 feet of her screen. The older ones, Michael included, sat farther back where they couldn't read the fine print. She'd positioned them deliberately. I'm recommending immediate action, Chelsea said. For Grandpa's protection and the company's future. She stood at the head of the table, smile in place. Manicured hands gesturing at evidence. Eyes bright with what she believed was triumph. I don't move. Don't speak. My hands rest on oak I shaped 39 years ago. Then I reach into my briefcase. The leather was soft, worn smooth where my thumb always rested. Gold leaf number 17 caught the fluorescent lights. 16 years of handling had worn the binding smooth. I place it on the table between us. Open to page 47, I say. My voice comes out quiet, steady. November 14th, 2008. Chelsea's hand freezes halfway to her water glass. The color leaves her face in stages. First the flush of confidence. Then normal skin tone. Finally pale enough that Michael notices and frowns. Read it, I say. November 14th, 2008. The offshore account you told me to open. Her eyes widen, dart to Michael. To the door. To Derek's empty chair. Her mouth opens, closes. Opens again. Her confident smile freezes. Face goes pale. Eyes dart to Michael, to the door, to Derek's empty chair. Her hand touches her throat. 16 years of proof sits between us on the table I built. I didn't raise my voice. Just opened journal number 17 to page 47, my fingers resting on ink that had naturally darkened over 16 years. The fountain pen entry showed my handwriting from 2008, the same neat columns I'd used since learning English. November 14, 2008. Clear weather, 42 degrees. Chelsea suggested I open Cayman Islands account for tax efficiency. Told her no. Father's words, let honest work speak. Chelsea's hand froze on the journal. Before she could open it, the boardroom door opened. Patricia Voss walked in carrying 4 additional journals and a banker's box of financial records. She wasn't invited to this meeting. I'd called her 3 days earlier when the special session notice appeared, recognizing the setup. Morning, everyone, Patricia said. I'm Albert's attorney. He retained my services this morning to address some irregularities in the competency assessment presented today. Chelsea's mouth opened. No sound came out. Patricia set the banker's box on the oak table. The journals followed, leather bindings soft from decades of handling. Gold leaf numbers gleamed under fluorescent lights. 11, 15, 23, 31. Let's start with the medical evaluation, Patricia said. She produced a document from her briefcase. 23 pages, bound with a black clip. Dr. Helen Ortiz's neurological assessment of Albert Grayson, completed March 1st. Patricia walked the table, placing copies in front of each board member. The assessment includes brain imaging, memory testing, executive function analysis, and spatial reasoning evaluation. Albert's cognitive performance falls in the 85th percentile for his age group. His long-term memory tested in the 97th percentile. His analytical reasoning showed no decline from baseline measurements taken 5 years prior. There are no signs of dementia, cognitive decline, or neurological impairment. Michael Brenner opened the report, scanned the first page. His jaw tightened. The psychologist Chelsea cited, Patricia continued, Dr. Raymond Kohler never personally evaluated Albert. The signature on the consent form is forged. The middle initial is incorrect. The diagnosis is a template purchased from an online document mill. Chelsea backdated it and added Albert's forged signature 3 weeks ago. Chelsea's hands gripped the chair back. Her knuckles went white. She didn't move when Patricia placed the next document on the table. That's not true, she said. Voice barely audible. Patricia pulled another document from her briefcase. This is the document examiner's analysis. The ink composition on the forged signature doesn't match Albert's standard fountain pen. The stroke pattern shows hesitation marks inconsistent with his natural handwriting. The date stamp on the PDF file shows it was created February 20th, 2 weeks before the supposed evaluation date. One of the younger board members stopped typing, looked up at Chelsea. Patricia opened her banker's box. Now let's discuss the financial irregularities Albert noticed 6 months ago. She produced a thick folder. Spreadsheets, bank statements, wire transfer records. My forensic accountant traced $847,000 from Grayson Manufacturing through 3 shell corporations to an offshore account in Chelsea's name. Chelsea moved this money over 4 years through falsified vendor payments and inflated maintenance costs. Patricia spread the documents across the table. Highlighted line items, transaction dates, account numbers. Chelsea created fictional expenses to hide the theft. She listed payments to vendors who don't exist. She inflated actual costs and pocketed the difference. She backdated digital files to match falsified quarterly reports. Michael picked up one of the spreadsheets. Found a highlighted entry. Precision tool supply, he read. $42,000 for equipment maintenance. That company dissolved in 2003, Patricia said. Albert attended their bankruptcy auction. It's documented in journal number 15. She opened the leather notebook to a marked page, showed the entry to Michael. My handwriting from 21 years ago, noting the auction date and equipment purchased. Chelsea created a payment to a non-existent company, Patricia said. The metadata on her digital invoice shows it was created in 2019, 16 years after the vendor went bankrupt. Chelsea sat down heavily. Her face had gone white. Patricia produced another set of documents. Derek Sutton wasn't present today. Smart. Let Chelsea take the fall while he stayed clean. The assessor who valued this company at $4.2 million is Derek's college roommate and business partner. He's receiving a $200,000 finder's fee buried in the purchase agreement. She showed the board the contract clause. Page 37, paragraph 12, subsection C. I arranged for an actual independent assessment. 3 qualified appraisers reviewed Grayson Manufacturing's contract portfolios, client relationships, owned property, and equipment. The company's fair market value is $12 million. Michael set down his coffee cup. The ceramic hit oak harder than he intended. Chelsea is selling a $12 million company for 4.2, Patricia said. The $7.8 million difference would flow through shell companies to Derek and Chelsea over 3 years, disguised as consulting fees and performance bonuses. She pulled up the next document, the purchase agreement Chelsea had drafted. Page 19 includes a clause giving Chelsea a $400,000 consulting fee. Page 23 grants Derek's firm rights to the company name and all intellectual property. Page 41 specifies that if Albert is declared incompetent within 90 days, Chelsea's power of attorney allows her to complete the sale without his consent. Patricia looked at Chelsea. You weren't trying to help your grandfather. You were trying to steal his company. Chelsea shook her head, opened her mouth, closed it again. Finally, Patricia said, we have email discovery. She distributed printed messages. 97 emails between Chelsea and Derek, dated across 18 months. These show planning of what they called the senility strategy. Derek suggested the competency clause. Chelsea agreed to falsify medical evidence. They calculated their profit split. They coordinated timing to coincide with quarterly board review. Michael read the first email. His hands started shaking. The message was dated September 2022. Derek's words, if we can get him declared incompetent, the power of attorney lets you close without his signature. We split the undervaluation profit, 60-40. Chelsea's response, he's already showing confusion about contracts. Jurises, I can build on that. Give me 12 months to establish the narrative. Michael read through 3 more emails. Set them down. Looked at me. Jesus Christ, Chelsea, he said. His voice shook with disgust, loud enough that everyone in the room heard. This isn't corporate succession. It's elder abuse. The 2 younger board members had stopped looking at their laptops. They stared at Chelsea like they'd never seen her before. I sat with my hands folded on the table I'd built 39 years ago. My voice came out quiet when I spoke. Would anyone else like to examine my documentation? I have 30 years more. Chelsea stood, tried to speak. Her voice broke. Grandpa, I can explain. No, Michael said. You can't. He looked at Patricia. What are the criminal charges? Embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy, forgery, and elder financial abuse, Patricia said. The prosecutor is reviewing the case now. Asset seizure proceedings have already begun on the offshore account, and Chelsea's personal assets purchased with embezzled funds. Chelsea's hand went to her throat. The engagement ring Derek had given her caught the fluorescent light. Michael turned to the other board members. I'm calling for an immediate vote. Termination of Chelsea Grayson as CFO. Criminal referral to the district attorney. Civil proceedings to recover all embezzled funds. The vote was unanimous. 7 hands raised, including the two younger members who'd nodded along with Chelsea's presentation 20 minutes earlier. Chelsea pushed her chair back. Her heels clicked across the tile. She stopped at the door, one hand on the frame. "Derek said you'd never find it," she said, voice hollow. "He said old people can't track digital transactions." I looked at her, didn't speak. She left. The door closed behind her. Patricia started collecting the evidence. Journal number 7 stayed open to page 47. The 1998 entry about offshore accounts. 26 years of proof that I'd seen this coming, that I'd documented everything, that I'd never stopped being sharp enough to protect what I'd built. Michael walked over to my chair. "Albert, I'm sorry. I should have known better." "You didn't have the documentation," I said. He nodded, left the room with the other board members. Patricia and I sat alone in the boardroom I'd used for 40 years. The same oak table, the same fluorescent lights, the same framed contracts on the walls. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now we let the prosecutors do their job," Patricia said. The evidence is clear. Chelsea and Derek will both face charges. You'll get your money back. The company stays yours." I closed journal number 7. Ran my thumb over the worn leather binding. 31 years of writing everything down. Every conversation, every decision, every transaction that mattered. My father's words had been right. Let your work speak louder than your words. The journals had spoken. Chelsea's case was gone. The board had heard every number, every date, every forged signature. Chelsea set the journal down. Her hands trembled when she reached for her water glass. The confident corporate presentation had collapsed. The offshore account documents spread across the oak table showed every transaction, every shell company, every calculated transfer. "This is a legitimate tax strategy," she said. Her voice cracked on legitimate. Michael Brenner dropped the forensic accountant's report on the table. The pages showed $847,000 routed through 3 shell corporations to her Cayman Islands account. "Protect company assets," Michael repeated, "by moving them to your personal offshore account. The tax efficiency would have benefited the company long term." Derek explained the legal framework. Patricia Voss pulled another document from her briefcase. "Speaking of Derek, he's not here to explain anything today." Chelsea looked at the door. Derek's chair sat empty. "He'd texted her an hour ago. This is getting messy. My lawyer says I should distance myself from the presentation." Michael stood. The chair scraped against tile. His sport coat bunched at the shoulders. He gripped the chair back, knuckles white. "I've known Albert Grayson for nearly 30 years, he said. Chelsea opened her mouth. Michael kept talking. "That man has forgotten more about manufacturing than I'll ever know. He built this company from nothing. 20 employees became 40. 40 became 60. Every quarter profitable." Michael's voice shook. "Chelsea, what you've done here." He paused, looked at the forensic documents. "This isn't corporate succession. This is criminal. I'm calling for your immediate termination and criminal referral." The 2 younger board members who'd nodded along with Chelsea's presentation sat motionless. One closed his laptop. The boardroom door opened. James Kowalski walked in wearing his factory floor uniform, steel-toed boots leaving faint marks on the tile. Patricia had subpoenaed him that morning. James stopped at the head of the table. He didn't look comfortable in the boardroom. Never had in 30 years. But he looked at Chelsea directly. "You asked me to testify about Albert's daily performance," he said to Patricia. "Please proceed." James pulled a small notebook from his pocket. His handwriting matched the production schedules on the factory floor whiteboard. "Albert arrives every morning at 6 a.m., has for 40 years. He walks the floor before first shift starts, checks the CNC machines, reviews the manual lathe setups, inspects quality control samples. James flipped a page. Last Tuesday, he caught a machining error on the aerospace bracket order. 0.003 variance in the tolerance spec. Second shift operator missed it. Quality control missed it. Albert caught it during his floor walk. That error would have cost us $40,000 in rejected parts and contract penalties. He closed the notebook. That man's sharper than people half his age. Chelsea stood. Her chair rolled backward. I have an MBA from Northwestern. I graduated top of my class. I understand modern business dynamics that manual processes can't address. This company needs professional management, not sentimental attachment to outdated methods. Patricia opened her laptop, turned the screen toward the board members. This is an email Chelsea sent to Derek 6 months ago. The message filled the screen. Date stamp, September 2023. Chelsea's corporate account to Derek's personal email. Once the old man's declared incompetent, we can flip this company in 18 months for $8 million profit. Your firm takes 60%, I take 40%. Just need to establish the senility narrative carefully. Give me 12 more months. The room went silent. Someone's coffee cup touched a saucer. The sound echoed. Chelsea stared at the screen. The color left her face. That's out of context, she said. What context makes that acceptable? Michael asked. Derek said we could modernize the company, improve operations, then sell at actual market value. The $8 million is the difference between current underperformance and optimized potential. Patricia scrolled to another email. He's already confusing vendor contracts. I can build on that. Tell the board he's getting forgetful. Small things at first. Nobly, then the medical evaluation. Then the competency motion. You weren't worried about your grandfather's health, Patricia said. You were manufacturing evidence of decline. The boardroom door opened again. Derek Sutton walked in. He wore a navy suit, Italian leather shoes polished to mirrors. He didn't look at Chelsea. I'm here to formally withdraw our acquisition offer, he said, due to material misrepresentation of the company's financial status. He handed Patricia a document. Our firm's position is that the valuation assessment was based on fraudulent reporting. We're terminating all discussions. He walked out, didn't glance back. The door closed. Chelsea's hand went to her throat. The engagement ring he'd given her caught the fluorescent light. 2 carats, platinum setting. She'd posted the proposal photo on Instagram 4 months ago. Michael looked at the other board members. I'm calling for a vote. Immediate termination of Chelsea Grayson as Chief Financial Officer. Second, one of the older members said, all in favor? 7 hands rose. The 2 younger members hesitated 3 seconds, then raised theirs. Why, unanimous, Michael said. Motion passes. He didn't pause. Second vote, criminal referral to the district attorney for embezzlement, fraud, and elder financial abuse. Second, all in favor? 7 hands. No hesitation this time. Third vote, civil proceedings to recover all embezzled funds, including assets purchased with stolen money and offshore accounts established through fraud. Second, all in favor? 7 hands. Chelsea sat down. The chair rolled slightly. She caught the table edge. I looked at Patricia. I want a complete audit of the past 6 years, I said. Every transaction Chelsea handled. Every report she filed. Every contract she negotiated. Let's find everything. Patricia nodded. She was already on her phone with the prosecutor. Michael walked to my chair. He didn't sit, just stood there looking at the journals spread across the table I'd built 39 years ago. Albert, I'm sorry. I should have questioned this from the start. You didn't have the documentation, I said. He looked at Chelsea. She sat with her hands in her lap, staring at the engagement ring on her finger. The board will cooperate fully with the investigation, Michael said. Whatever you need. The other members filed out. Their footsteps echoed in the hallway. The factory hum continued below. First shift in full operation. Machines running. Quality inspections happening. The company I'd built still worked while the boardroom settled into silence. Chelsea stood. Her heels clicked twice on the tile. Then she stopped. Grandpa? I looked at her. I thought I was helping. Modernizing before it was too late. I didn't respond. Just closed journal number 7. The leather binding was soft under my palm. She left. Patricia stayed on the phone with the prosecutor, walking them through the evidence sequence. The boardroom smelled of paper and cold coffee and the 31 years of documentation that had just destroyed everything Chelsea had built. Patricia filed criminal charges Thursday morning, March 14, 2024, 48 hours after the board vote. Embezzlement, elder financial abuse, fraud, conspiracy, forgery. The state prosecutor called her office within 2 hours. Patricia's phone rang at 11:47 a.m. She listened for 3 minutes, then looked at me. Prosecutor wants this fast-tracked. He said, high-profile elder abuse with documentation this clean. By Friday afternoon, federal investigators had frozen Chelsea's Cayman Islands account. The bank complied with the seizure order within 24 hours. $847,000 locked down, pending civil forfeiture proceedings. They seized her consulting fee next. The $400,000 Derek's firm had already transferred sat in her personal checking account. Gone by Monday, her luxury condo downtown followed. The 2-bedroom unit with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, purchased 18 months earlier for $620,000. The lien filing showed it as proceeds from embezzled funds. She had 30 days to vacate. I walked the factory floor at 6 a.m. Tuesday, same as every morning. The CNC machines hummed. Second shift had completed the precision fastener order. 47 units, all within .002 tolerance. I found the quality control samples on my workbench, each one within spec. James Kowalski looked up from the milling station. Heard they arraigned her yesterday. Grand jury's next, I said. That comes after they review the evidence. He nodded, went back to his work. Chelsea's MBA credentials meant nothing once the criminal charges went public. Her Kellogg alumni network sent a standard email about maintaining professional standards. Translation: don't contact us. The corporate networking groups where she'd built her identity went silent. No more lunch invitations. No more conference panels. Her LinkedIn endorsements started disappearing. Someone posted the news article in her alumni group chat. Aerospace manufacturing CFO charged with elder abuse in grandfather's company. 43 comments before the moderator locked the thread. Derek blocked her number by Wednesday. His acquisitions firm issued a statement calling her a rogue actor who misrepresented her authority. They were cooperating fully with investigators. She called my office Friday afternoon. I let it go to voicemail. Grandpa, please, Derek won't return my calls. His firm is saying I acted alone. They're lying. He planned the whole competency strategy. Yeah, I deleted the message. The local business press ran the story first. Then the regional news stations picked it up. Channel 7 did a 3-minute segment about family betrayal and small business. They interviewed a legal expert about elder financial abuse statutes. These cases are particularly heinous, the expert said, because they exploit the trust relationship between family members. The victim in this case raised his granddaughter after her parents died. She repaid him by stealing his life's work. Social media found her LinkedIn profile next. The comments section filled with strangers dissecting her crime. Her professional headshot, the one where she wore her charcoal suit and low bun, became a target. Someone compared her daily crossword completions she'd posted on Instagram, proof of her sharp mind, she'd claimed, to my journals. Her habit looked pathetic next to 31 years of documentation. The grand jury indicted her in 6 weeks. Federal charges, 10 to 15 years potential sentence if convicted at trial. Her public defender called Patricia's office. My client wants to discuss a plea agreement. Patricia scheduled the meeting for Thursday. I didn't attend, just reviewed the terms she negotiated. 7 years incarceration, full restitution of $1,247,000, including interest and damages. Permanent prohibition from serving as corporate officer in any capacity. Mandatory elder abuse counseling as condition of parole. Chelsea signed the agreement Friday morning. Derek's parallel prosecution moved slower. His attorney had more resources, filed more motions. But the 97 conspiracy emails Patricia had discovered made his defense difficult. He faced 8 to 12 years on fraud and conspiracy charges. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for November. I sat in the courtroom gallery wearing my steel-toed boots and button-down shirt. The same outfit I wore every day on the factory floor. Patricia sat beside me. The courtroom smelled of floor wax and stale air. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Chelsea walked in wearing plain clothes. No designer suit, no styled hair. The small scar above her left eyebrow showed prominently. She'd lost weight. Her face looked older than 35. The judge reviewed the case file for 3 minutes, then looked at Chelsea. Does the defendant wish to make a statement before sentencing? Chelsea stood. Her hand shook. Your Honor, I want to apologize to my grandfather. I thought I was helping modernize the company. I didn't understand how my actions would hurt him. The judge's expression didn't change. Tess, Ms. Grayson, you helped yourself to $847,000 of your grandfather's money. You forged medical documents to declare him incompetent. You conspired to sell his company for $7.8 million below market value. These aren't the actions of someone trying to help. Chelsea's lawyer touched her arm. She sat down. The judge continued. This court sees many financial crimes. But this case represents a betrayal of the worst kind. You exploited the man who raised you after your parents died, who paid for your education, who gave you opportunities he never had as an immigrant. Your crime wasn't just theft. It was fundamental violation of family trust. No one spoke. Someone's coffee cup touched a saucer. The sound echoed. Does the victim wish to address the court? The judge looked at me. I shook my head. She'd said enough already. The evidence had said more. This court sentences you to 7 years in federal prison, to be followed by 3 years supervised release. You will pay full restitution of $1,247,000. You are permanently prohibited from serving as a corporate officer. You will complete mandatory elder abuse counseling as condition of parole. The gavel came down. She'd said enough already. The evidence had said more. 2 marshals led Chelsea toward the side door. She glanced back once. I didn't look away. Patricia gathered her files. Wow, that's done, she said. We walked out through the courthouse lobby. November sunlight came through the high windows. My truck was parked 3 blocks away, in the same spot I'd used for 40 years when I had business downtown. The factory floor would be running second shift by now. Quality inspections happening, production schedules being met. The company I'd built still worked while the legal system finished its process. I drove back to the plant, parked in my usual spot, walked through the main entrance at 2:15 p.m. James was reviewing the day's production logs at his station. "How'd it go?" 7 years, I said. He nodded, went back to his logs. I checked the whiteboard schedules. Third shift would start the aerospace bracket reorder at 6. I'd be there at 5:45 to review the setup. Some things don't change. 18 months after the board meeting, I walked the factory floor at 6:15 on a Tuesday morning in September. The CNC machines hummed their normal rhythm. Third shift had completed the aerospace bracket order overnight, 47 units stacked on the inspection table. I checked the first 3.001 tolerance on all measurements. James Kowalski stood at the production station reviewing shift logs. He'd been chief operating officer for 14 months now, promoted 3 weeks after Chelsea's sentencing. The promotion made sense. 30 years on the floor, loyal through every crisis, understood the work better than any MBA could. Morning, James. Morning. Quality checks came through clean. The Lockheed contract we'd nearly lost came back. Boeing increased their order by 30%. 14% revenue growth in 19 months, reversing Chelsea's efficiency cuts, strengthening client relationships she'd damaged with spreadsheet management. Turns out personal service still mattered in aerospace manufacturing. I still kept the journals. Number 34 sat on my desk at home, black fountain pen resting in the spine crease. Every day, same routine. Document the decisions, record the conversations, preserve the facts. Sunday afternoons, I restored vintage typewriters in my workshop. The 1952 Royal Quiet Deluxe needed new ribbon spools. I'd ordered them from a specialty supplier in Connecticut. Mechanical precision still satisfied something the digital world couldn't touch. Patricia and I had dinner most evenings now. 6 months of careful rebuilding. She reviewed contracts with the same precision I used on the factory floor. No shortcuts, no assumptions. Just facts and careful verification. The employee stock ownership plan took effect in January. Factory workers who'd built the company alongside me now owned equity shares. When I retired, Grayson Manufacturing would belong to people who understood precision machining, not corporate raiders with acquisition strategies. The trade magazine interview happened last week. They wanted my perspective on family succession in manufacturing businesses. People ask if I'm bitter, I told the journalist. I'm not. Anger's wasted energy. I documented what happened. The facts spoke for themselves. She'd typed notes on her laptop while I explained. I showed her how to oil the typewriter carriages when she was 12. How permanent ink couldn't be altered. The technique without the why behind it. Journal 34 would record that interview tonight. Same leather binding, same gold leaf number, same fountain pen making permanent marks on permanent paper. Cutting fluid and metal shavings scented the factory floor. Outside the high windows, morning light cut across the parking lot where I'd taught Chelsea to ride her bicycle 27 years ago.